About a year ago, I was in the market for a home and was driving by this parcel that the mine is on. I noticed a for sale sign that had been here apparently for quite some time. It was knocked over, so drove down the driveway and it was well overgrown. There were power lines down and an abandoned house on it. Did some research and turns out that the house was abandoned maybe 10 years ago. It was a project I was willing to undertake, so I've spent the last 9 months or so renovating that home, and will eventually be moving in. But in the process of doing so and exploring the property, I uncovered a unique excavation out of the side of a hill on the eastern edge of the property. I knew there were Baryte mines in the area. I've talked to neighbors, people who've been around town for a long time. My own dad said that he remembered mines in this area when he was a kid. But, this always struck me as maybe an area where they were trying to steal fill from to get a good grade on the driveway, or maybe some other project in when they were developing this part of town. And then I ended up being connected with Mike, who came over and we did some poking around in the woods, and I showed him what I believed could potentially be a mine entrance, or the Baryte mines that we were curious about, and it lined up well with the research that he had done and some of the maps that he had uncovered over the years. And another week or so later, followed the strike of that mapped Baryte vein up maybe 1,000 feet to the east, and another potential entrance that had been either filled in. There were tailing piles in the area, and that confirmed that we may have found the eastern extent of this mine. We're going to assume that we actually find an entrance.
Yep.
So we wouldn't want to stockpile the soil in front of the entrance, because it would make it more difficult to get to in the future.
I think over here would be all right. There were the copper mines that were here in the late 1700s, and down at Yale University there was a mineralogist by the name of James Dwight Dana, who as a result of that came up through Cheshire, which was then part of Wallingford, and looking at all of the rock outcrops he could, he was more interested in all the different kinds of minerals he could find rather than actually trying to find more copper. But he's the first one to have reported about Baryte in Cheshire. Actually, in the old copper mines, they occasionally find Baryte that was worthless to them, so they didn't do anything with it. That would have been about 1830 that he wrote about the Baryte, and it was mostly of academic interest until somewhere in the 1850s. They were finding commercial uses for Baryte. They were using it mostly as a way to make an alternate to lead paint, to make Baryte paint, and as a filler for paper, to make a very, very white paper, because crushed Baryte produces the greatest amount of whiteness per amount of material you use, and they were using that also as part of a glaze for pottery. So people got interested in mining Baryte here in Cheshire, starting in the 1850s, and the Jinny Hill mine was one of the first to go in. We're a little uncertain as to the exact timing on it. Depends who you read when they first put it in. But they put down an exploratory mine shaft and then started following it. And the result of that is there are 3 more or less east-west veins of Baryte that they discovered. The one we're sitting in front of is the western entrance to the more northern mine. The central mine, which is only about 100 yards south of us, running east-west, was the biggest mine and the one they pulled most of the barite out of. And then south of that there's a smaller mine that never went very far. And this one pinches out sooner than the central one does. So I know it goes all the way under Merwin Circle, all the way up to Radmere. It goes about that far, and I'm not sure it goes any further. The central shaft goes further east. In doing this, they discovered they needed people with expertise in mining because the original people around here didn't know much about mining. It wasn't one of these things you did, you farmed. And that was the reason for bringing in the people from Cornwall, the Cornish miners, into Cheshire to try to get the expertise for building a proper mine system, because it was one thing to be able to put a hole down. It was something else to be able to drive the horizontal shafts and do the ventilation for the mines and the dewatering and all of the things connected with doing proper mining. So these Cornish miners came in and did that. The mines eventually played out. So they mined from about mid-1850s to mid-1880s and pulled out thousands of tons of baryte ore. Most of it looks something like this piece right here. The white is the baryte, the red is the country rock that the baryte was intruded into. The last mine for baryte closed around 1893, 1894. They finally gave up. The cost of dewatering the mines and processing it got to be more than the value of the ore that they were processing at that stage. And the mines were closed, and most people forgot just where the mines were. There were some maps that were available, but we've never been able to find the actual detailed maps inside the mines.
I think it's going great. We found bedrock, just a little difficult to maneuver around there, so I'm going to take off my light so I don't destroy it anymore. But I'm feeling pretty confident we're going to find something.
I don't know. If you tap that rock, you'll know if it's bedrock.
Oh, this is a wall.
Bedrock, yeah.
This is the wall right here.
All right, so we just hit the bedrock on the left side here with the backhoe, and Steve jumped in there with a shovel and just started pulling out some fill. And we've exposed a wall to this possible attic. There's a sheer, straight rock going into the dirt, and there's fairly loose dirt inside it. There's even a root going in there. So, I mean, this is what we're looking for. This is like a perfect case scenario for finding this attic. We found the bedrock, all we gotta do is follow it.
Underneath that rock. Yep. All right.
Oh, what do you got?
It opened up. All right.
We gotta dig a hole, we gotta dig down.
Oh, wow.
What do you see?
No skeletons. And it's not full of water either.
You see a floor?
I don't see a floor. As soon as I made the first shovel stroke into the mine, and you could see that there was a void space open up, and it was clearly large enough to get a person in. That was pretty exciting. It was a lot. It was a lot cooler than I expected. Yeah, it looks like it goes down maybe 12 or so feet. Wow.
You have reopened one of the entrances, the western adit to the northernmost mine shaft. This may have been mostly for horizontal access and drainage and air.
Wow. So Mike, it looks like it goes down about 8 feet or so and then levels out. Levels out, yep.
Go. Very steep, going down about 8 feet or so, and I see a tunnel. I see Baryte. Wow. Wow, look at this Baryte vein.
Okay, I'm in. There's the most beautiful Baryte vein I've ever seen in here. The Baryte is magnificent. It's better than any of the tailings we saw on the surface. Wow, look at this vein. So it's safe to go in. Hey, Steve, look up.
Going in for the first time and just looking at the veins of Baryte and just that first room, it's just incredible to see what it would have been like to be a miner in Cheshire in the late 1800s. And it's just really cool to, I guess, own a piece of history.
It's a sandstone. It's an arkosic, a red arkosic sandstone. Some places it's a red siltstone. All sandstone and siltstone deposits that were laid down in this case in the very late Triassic. That was the beginning of the age of dinosaurs. And the intrusions came in somewhat later. We have these intrusive dikes, both north, south, and east, west around here. A rock that, if it comes out to the surface, is a basaltic lava. And so we have the huge lava flows that came up through these dikes. But a lot of places here, all you see is the dike. You don't see what was on the surface over it. And the dikes, as they came up, the molten rock that formed the dikes, had a lot of liquid in them. Now, this would include water, but we're talking such high pressure that the water is essentially liquid at far above what's normally the boiling point. And dissolved in the water were a lot of minerals of various sorts. And as the water cooled, the minerals precipitated out. So the water moved into cracks adjoining the dikes. Further south, veins of copper ore, so that copper and Baryte were the main two minerals. The very south end of Cheshire is one place where there's actually some galena, which is lead ore, shows up, and one spot a little bit of sphalerite, which is a zinc ore. So all of these came up in the fluids adjoining the dikes. And in this particular case, the fluids mostly deposited this Baryte.
I think it does keep going, but what's happening here is this is the top of the tunnel, and the whole tunnel's filled in with dirt. and you have the ceiling falling off the tunnel and landing on top of that dirt. So it's like a combination of things, dirt and rock. You can kind of see where you get to the rock. If you look to the left, you can see that there's like a open sidewall, whereas to the right, it's just fully packed.
Let me see how heavy it is.
Like a metal, internal, like below the rocks and then post them out.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, she got it. All right, I'm in this really tight crevice here. It definitely does keep going, but there's so many rocks.
As a property owner, having an inkling that you might have a mine entrance or cave entrance or some sort of access to the subsurface on your property, I would much rather know than not know. Just having the possibility of a mine on my property, I was not comfortable with that. I needed to either confirm there was the entrance or deny that there was the entrance. At the end of the day, we're going to secure the entrance, and it'll be a very safe but unique feature for my property and anybody else's property.
All right, that was amazing. Yeah, I think it keeps going.
5 or 6
right.
mines there.
Okay.
But he thinks the big NRG plant there. The big one, he thinks he found.
That was amazing.
Wood. He hasn't gone into.
Oh, what an amazing mine. All right, excellent. Well, that's going to be an interesting dig project, I think. It keeps going.